Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Out of Spec Guide. I'm Max, and you join me with my friend and colleague Colton from the Out of Spec Detailing channel. Hello.
Hey Max, how are you?
Doing well, Colton. So, Colton, you are, for those who haven't seen you before, a professional car detailer. They should check out your channel if they care about maintaining their car, especially, nicer, newer electric cars. You do those a lot. I wanted to talk to you today, Colton, about Tesla Cybertruck. We've heard a lot of news recently with how purchasing it is going to work because I feel like this vehicle is just changing a lot of the dynamics of what people are used to with buying a normal car. It's hotly anticipated, of course, in the electric scene. So, Colton, just off the bat, what are your thoughts on Tesla Cybertruck?
Yeah, Cybertruck's a polarizing vehicle to say the least. I think demand is just huge right now, to be honest with you. We'll be curious to see how this plays out, but there's so many people interested in this truck. Lots of people comparing it to Rivian R1T, of course, and yes, even of course the Ford Lightning. But man, the design is striking. Like I said, very polarizing. I personally am not the largest fan of it. I have yet to see one in person. And honestly, a lot of vehicles, new vehicles in general, you see photos of them and you're like, wow, that doesn't work. That really works. And then you see them in person, and often your opinions change. So I will say I'm not the hugest fan of it. I don't love the design, but I can't wait to see one in person, see how the thing actually drives and feels and looks right up close to it.
Yeah, there's a lot of unknowns that I don't, we could spend all day speculating about. But like you said, this is like no matter which way you slice it, a polarizing vehicle. It's one we've kind of seen more of. So here's some footage of it yesterday at Electrify Expo in Austin. Our friend Jerome got some footage of it. So, it's rolling around. They're about to make these. There's a delivery event coming up at the end of the month. And the big news, Colton, is that Tesla has said in people unpacking the latest buyer agreements for general Teslas, there's a clause for Cybertruck specifically that you're not going to be able to resell this within the first year.
Yeah, this is really interesting. I mean, it kind of took over Twitter, or X as we're now calling it, yesterday. And man, oh man, are the Cybertruck opinions polarizing as ever, especially on this. Lots of people saying, I am so happy Tesla's doing this. I'm in the boat. I really, really do not like this whatsoever. So, what are your thoughts on it, first off, Max? And then we can kind of go back and forth on, opinions and what we've actually heard about this so far.
Yeah. So my thoughts on it are like I get, let's say, the devil's advocate argument here, like representing Tesla, where this would come from. Because we think of a vehicle like Colton, you detailed a lot of the Rivian R1Ts, right? Which at one point were very hotly anticipated in short supply. They were being sold for insane markups on, cars in bids and places like that on the secondhand market. So Tesla's trying to, you could say in the interest of their customers, avoid a situation like that. But also, it does work against the interest of like, traditionally the free market cars. I mean, we live in a market where typically you're used to when you buy something being able to just have carte blanche to do whatever it is you may want to do with it. And so Tesla controlling this part of the purchase experience through this clause is a little bit strange, especially when you get into the fact they're like, okay, we'll give you an exception and we might buy back the vehicle from you with this damage taken into account. It just to me seems really controlling. And also, it just seems weirdly like ambiguous still because it's like, okay, well, how often is Tesla going to allow people to, let's say, sell it back to Tesla? Because if there's truly a lot of demand for this, as there seems to be, then I'm sure Tesla will want to take back every Cybertruck they can, right? And then resell it themselves. But then you get into we don't even know the demand situation because there's tons of reservations, hundreds of thousands, but all those take at the moment, Colton, is $100 deposit since this was announced. So it's not exactly like a super serious commitment. Most of the time in the auto industry, it's like a minimum 500, usually $1,000 deposit you put on a vehicle. This is substantially less, and the specs and the details of this are still up in the air. There have been leaks. Another YouTube channel, The Fast Lane, got some leaks from someone who sent them in about what the Cybertruck is going to like weigh and its motors and all that. But like we haven't heard anything official from Tesla yet. So it's just so interesting to me, everything about this truck, about how little we know. And yet like already we can tell that like the buying process of it is going to be heavily regulated and controlled by Tesla. It almost to me, Colton, seems more like a publicity launch than an actual vehicle launch.
Yeah, that's an interesting point. And man, I posted about this last night on Twitter X, and very, like I said, polarizing comments both ways. Now, a lot of the arguments with this, and to be perfectly clear, this is not the first time we've seen something like this. We've seen this from Ford with the Ford GT. I've heard hints of Porsche doing this with their new 911 ST. Now, my personal opinion is when what they're trying to do, of course, is eliminate people getting them and immediately flipping them. But in my opinion, in the world of supercars or hypercars, whatever it may be, whatever you consider those vehicles, they are making such a limited amount of them that, I don't know what the 911 ST, if it's 1,000 of them, if it's 2,000 of them, and that's it. Same with the Ford GT. They produced this many and said, okay, this is enough. Cybertruck, this is going to be something that I think in a couple of years, we're going to see hundreds of thousands of these on the roads around us. People are going to enjoy them, drive them, do whatever with it. So I'm trying to understand with this, who is this actually protecting? And a lot of people will say, well, it's protecting the enthusiasts that actually want to buy the trucks and enjoy it. And I would argue somebody who is, gets the vehicle and wants to flip it to make a profit, the person on the other end of that who is actually purchasing that vehicle for over sticker, they are probably more enthusiastic than anybody because they're willing to put up extra cash on top of it and have that as whether it's a flex or whatever they want, just to have it now. They want it now. They don't want to wait 2 years. Honestly, we have no idea how this reservation process is going to go. Are they going to do it for the people who put in their reservation absolutely first? If you had people going in and clicking, yes, I want 50 reservations so quickly. I honestly don't know. And I don't think anybody knows. Tesla is such an interesting company when it comes to how they roll out vehicles and how they go about things. But other things I've heard, this is not the first time Tesla has done this. Now, I'm not 100% certain on this. I had somebody last night comment on Twitter that they said one of their friends bought a early Model Y when they were first coming out, and there was this clause in there, and he was banned from buying vehicles for a year. Again, take that with a grain of salt. I don't know the actual legitimacy of this, but a really interesting point. Max, you touched on the Rivian earlier, and like I have worked on so many Rivians at this point. Like I know them like the back of my hand. And it was a really interesting market when Rivian first launched. The hype was unbelievable. I personally think Cybertruck is going to be maybe slightly more than that. I mean, it is just the wildest looking thing you've ever seen. But what we saw were people that had early reservations when they took delivery of really specifically their R1T. They were flipping them. They were purchasing these at $80,000, selling them for 100, 110, 115. Now, I personally think Cybertruck, if you were able to flip these, they may go for even more. But I didn't really see anybody getting hurt with this. The people who took delivery and sold it, they were happy. The people who were able to get a vehicle now instead of waiting 2 to 3 years, they're happy. Rivian's happy because, yeah, I mean, all they've done is just increase the value of the brand, that hype mentality of the brand. It just made them more desirable. And now the market has completely corrected itself on its own without Rivian's involvement, without anything like that. So that's why, in my opinion, I just don't really understand the argument of this big overhead saying, yeah, you can or can't do this with your vehicle. I personally hate this so much.
Yeah, a lot of interesting points there. And here's what I would say, Colton, is different with Cybertruck from a Rivian, or like I brought this up too briefly, right? The Hummer EV, let's say. The Rivian, you were saying, right? People flipping them at the time for like 120, 110 of an $80,000 vehicle. The Cybertruck was promised initially at being under $40,000. Now, I don't think anyone's expecting that price still. Elon has said that like they're going to raise the price. The whole industry has raised prices, but still, it seems to be this like vehicle that they want to go into mass production. We're not talking about a Ford GT situation. We're not talking about a rare model Porsche. We're not talking about a boutique like exotic supercar, even though, this has a unique design. It's supposed to be a mass market vehicle. It's supposed to be somewhat affordable. And so that's why I think the prospect of seeing them flipped and for going for insane value, maybe Tesla's worried that would be damaging for the brand. In the same way that it hyped up like Rivian's brand, I think Tesla might be worrying that like, oh, the Cybertruck is already embroiled in enough controversy. Now you're going to have stories of them going for $300,000 or crazy auctions for reservations like we've already seen. Like the Hummer EV, I think is even more precipitous, where that was a vehicle no normal people were buying. And so at the time, like a year and a half ago on Cars and Bids, people were happy to buy it for 230 grand, like basically 100% markup on the original vehicle. Now, like you said with the Rivian, the market has corrected itself. With Cybertruck, the big unknown to me, Coleton, is like if it's actually mass market, if Tesla in 2024 can really start mass producing these, then maybe Tesla's hoping, oh, we can correct this by just ramping up supply super aggressively. And is that overly optimistic to believe? Could be, but it's possible, I think, because it's being marketed as a mass market and not as like a specialist or even like a super expensive vehicle.
Yeah, great points there, Max. And, Elon said on the Joe Rogan podcast that he was just recently on that Cybertruck is a massive headache to produce. We all know he's talked about production hell. It is so insanely hard to manufacture vehicles at large scale with quality. We all know Tesla has had their issues in the past. Tons of manufacturers do. I personally think this is going to be a mass market vehicle. Now, is the demand going to be there in a couple of years? I honestly have no idea. I mean, when we look at Rivian, don't want to really get talking into too much demand with that. But as you can tell, the take rate on R1Ss, I don't remember what I read at one point. It was like 75% R1Ss over Ts. And I think that's an interesting point. I'm not really sure that the Cybertruck, other than how it really looks, is necessarily for the common consumer. I think a lot of people think that they need a truck. And I actually, a few weeks ago, maybe a month ago, posted on Twitter a poll saying, if you have a Cybertruck reservation, is this your first truck? Is this your second truck? Or, what's the deal with that? And it was honestly quite split. This was going to be their first truck. And yeah, I thought that was really interesting. So it's not, one of those things where everybody's like, I got to have a truck and it's going to be a Cybertruck. And I think we've seen that with Rivian with that self-correcting market. R1Ss are still going for around what you can get. If you were to purchase one today or order one, the difference is you still have to wait for them. So the market is so interesting right now. But yeah, this whole clause of you can't sell it within a year, to me, is just, it's such an odd thing for a company to say, yeah, you can't do that. I mean, to me, it's your own asset if you're purchasing it. The way I read it with the 911 ST, I just recently read an article this morning about it. They were saying that you do not own the vehicle for a year, which I think is really interesting. The Porsche market's completely different than the Tesla market. Let's be realistic. They're producing a small amount of these GT3s, GT3 RS, editions of these. I don't think Cybertruck's going to be like that. They're not going to make 2,000 of these and go, that's all we made. I think they're trying to make hundreds of thousands, millions of these things. So I think it's a weird implementation on this. It personally is, a big turn off for me. I do not have a Cybertruck reservation. It's not a vehicle that I need or want at this point. I may drive on and go, this is the best thing ever. And, I really don't know, but I just think it's a really strange implementation.
Yeah, I agree with you. It's kind of unprecedented in so mass market of a vehicle to do this, albeit one that they're having trouble producing at mass quantity, that they've said will be very limited, that Elon has said, we kind of buried our own grave with this. There's a lot of anxiety with Tesla for launching this vehicle because as specialized and as much hype as it has, it seems like it almost, to me, has more cachet as like this cultural thing, like, oh my gosh, the Cybertruck cult, and everyone I know, like regardless of whether they're into cars or they're into electric cars or not, is familiar with the Cybertruck and its branding. So like that on its own has been hugely helpful for Tesla. So it's almost like by making this a reality and by shipping it to customers and potentially having the stories of them being flipped and sold, Tesla only has cachet to lose because they've gained so much just with the like promise and the hype around the Cybertruck existing. And then we get into like the broader EV truck market, which is like really matured in the time since they announced it, right? We've got the Ram Charger now, which was recently announced, which is like gonna basically be more for truck people who want to be able to tow and have like a gasoline generator that seriously extends their range. We've got the Silverado EV that potentially, has its own production issues, but could be ramping up. The Ford Lightning has been meeting supply has met demand, and so people can get those for the price they should be. And of course, we already mentioned the Rivian R1T. So like within however big the electric pickup truck market is, it's like how many niches are there left? Whoever's buying a Cybertruck, like if Tesla says, okay, it's a mass market vehicle, maybe it's more of a flex, maybe it's more of this just like image thing, and that's important to people, but I don't truly know if that's like mass market important to people the way Tesla has said it is. So it's like this fascinating time in the EV market in general. There's a lot of anxiety, but also just with Tesla rewriting the rules of like what can happen when you purchase a vehicle. So it was like super interesting. You saying like with the Porsche, you don't own that 911 ST. With this, it seems like, okay, it's a normal, like you're going to own it. It just Tesla is threatening to basically sue you if you try to resell it. And because it's a Tesla, I imagine everything's very integrated with the account system. They might probably remotely lock or like disable the vehicle if you were trying to give it to another buyer. So I think people will find loopholes and workarounds for this, is my guess. And like that's something I think we really have to cover and have to spec broadly. But I don't know what your thoughts are, Coleton, with how the market's going to react as like we see the first few Cybertrucks and buyers consider flipping them or getting them into the hands of someone else.
Yeah, I mean, the car market in general is just so strange. And, we talk all the time. You see other dealerships that are not like Tesla. So, let's just give, for example, like a Mercedes G-Wagon, one of the most adjusted vehicles on the market. It's like 150 sticker. Dealerships are asking 100 over, but the cars are sitting there. That's costing that dealership money. Tesla, on the other hand, this is a totally different scenario. And again, I cannot rationalize in my head who this is actually hurting. In my personal opinion, if you are selling a Cybertruck for the full Mac Daddy one, let's call it 100 grand. You purchase it the next day, somebody wants to buy it off you. They run up to your car and go, I have to have that. I'll give you 200K for it. In my personal opinion, you're crazy not to do that. Take the money, enjoy it, and get another one when they're finally made. Like on the other hand of the 911 ST, I'm just going to bring that back to example. There's so few of them that it's really hard to get your hands on. Porsche market is totally different. To get a car like that, you have to know someone. So I think that's where people are not quite understanding this whole situation. And Porsche, you can't just walk up to a dealership and go, hey, I want a GT3 RS. They go, how many Porsches have you bought before? This whole thing. It's really, really interesting. But one of the last points I want to touch on with this whole thing, my personal opinion, if Tesla really wanted to discourage flipping of vehicles, they need to make their reservations way more realistic. Putting $100 down on a vehicle, I mean, you can put down 50 of them. You could put down 100. Yes, that'd be $10,000. But to me, it is insane. $100 to put your name on a car. In my personal opinion, if they really want to get rid of this flipping exercise, make it 5 grand, make it 10 grand. So you have people who are really wanting this vehicle. They have already said, I will purchase this vehicle. You're welcome to make it fully refundable. But I think you're going to have a lot less people putting up, hundreds of thousands of dollars just to have those Cybertruck reservations if they hold 30, 40, 50, whatever it is. Just in my opinion, I think the $100 is absolutely ridiculous. And, I personally think just giving Tesla money, I mean, how many years ago have we heard about the Cybertruck coming out? So if this was $5,000 to $10,000, you're going to have a lot of people frustrated that they don't already have it. But I don't know. It's such a weird situation to me. And the whole $100 thing, in my opinion, makes zero sense for reservations.
I agree with you. It's a weirdly small figure, and it speaks to this general gap between the hype of this vehicle, the potential value, which we don't know how short-lived or long-lasting it will be, but like the gap in value between like people's perceived expectations of this truck and Tesla's promises of this being a mass market vehicle. How long is it going to take for those things to converge? Maybe it's going to be a really quick crash because of interest rates and the economy, or people deciding, oh, I actually don't like this looking like whatever it looks like, or maybe people will love it and it will be back ordered for years on end. Tesla's trying, I guess, to take more control of the inventory and control whatever limited amount they can make right now. But yeah, the $100 is just, there's no, in my mind, real explanation for it. So we'll see how the delivery event goes and what happens. Of course, the people showing up at the delivery event, those owners are people who cashed in the referral credits. They are like Tesla, very like hardcore enthusiast fans, and so that's going to be a very like selective audience. The big question is going to be like what happens to normal owners of this vehicle once they get their hands on it, and how soon are they going to be able to do that? I know, for instance, once any of your clients or any of us at Out of Spec are able to get our hands on one, like for instance, you have to take a look at it. There's so many just questions about this truck that we have to unpack. Like, what is it going to be like to maintain in detail? What is it going to be like to own? Just so much of a gap between reality and expectations still with the Cybertruck. And yeah, the $100 deposit is just such a strangely small number. So real pre-orders, real kind of commitment down. I think that would be the kind of next step for Tesla to kind of tell who's serious with this at that point. But gotta agree with you, broadly speaking, that the whole limiting, like adding a purchase clause that you can't resell, you can't flip it. I just think that is a losing battle for Tesla and a
Yeah,
losing battle for anyone selling cars.
and I think there's, going to be some interesting points. This delivery event will be interesting. We're going to see this all unpack. I think it's 2.5 weeks away now, November 30th. What I think is going to be interesting is basically you had to have, I think it was 30,000 referral credit points to go to this event. My curiosity is going to be, is Tesla going to hand select these vehicles to put in the hands of influencers or people who are going to make videos on them? If you're going to this event, you're probably big in the Tesla space. You may have a YouTube channel, whatever it may be. Like I said, I don't think I know Kyle doesn't have a reservation for the Cybertruck. I know he is not planning on going to this and have the referral points, but I think this is going to be such an interesting played out delivery event, how they're going to do all this. We have no idea how many of these they've actually made. Have they made 1,000? Have they made 100 of them? Have they made 5,000? Honestly, yeah. I don't think anybody knows at this point. They have done the most interesting launch of a vehicle I have ever seen. I mean, how many photos just scrolling through Twitter or X? I mean, every other post is about Cybertruck. I saw it here. I saw it there. They're on the back of trailers. Like, they're charging. It's so interesting. I just think this is going to be one of the most wild vehicles that has ever hit the road, good or bad. I honestly don't know. Like I said, can't wait to see one in person. Can't wait to do a build quality review on one of these, because some of the early photos I've seen are like, yikes. And, Mr. Elon Musk has said that he wants sub 10 micron accuracy, which is okay. We'll see how that goes. But, really interesting points here. And in my opinion, Tesla should let the market decide what the actual value of this vehicle would be. I personally think they're only shooting themselves in the foot with this, their shareholders and things like that. I just, if you buy this truck for $100K and they're trading for what Hummer EV was, $250,000, how does that make the brand look bad? That's just my thoughts. And it's getting it in the hands of enthusiasts who, yes, have a lot of money, but they're obviously enthusiastic about the product if they are purchasing it. So,
yeah, Well, if you have a Cybertruck on reservation or an argument that you think makes this kind of buying arrangement and the preventing of you flipping it make sense, please let us know in the comments. I think we really have to cover Cybertruck super closely as this launch happens. And like you said, Colton, I think it's going to be all influencer central. I mean, if I were Tesla, that's how I would do it, right? At this delivery event, because you have already so much buzz about this truck. You might as well use your limited inventory when you have it to just get even more out. And so we're going to have to just see what the reality of the Cybertruck looks like as it actually becomes more real, as we see them driving on the road, as we see them in expos, see the real build quality, which is going to be what's so fascinating. I'm looking forward personally to seeing you unpack. But yeah, let us know your thoughts on Cybertruck and Tesla kind of rewriting the rules of how you purchase a vehicle, because they never seem to lack creativity in doing that.
Definitely.
And yeah, thanks for joining me, Colton.
Of course. Thanks, Max. Appreciate it.
See ya.